And there are some people who are criticizing his military work because of some of the things that he said. They're calling it stolen valor. As a former Air Force official yourself, what do you want to say about that?
Look, anybody who puts on the uniform and serves, in my opinion, is a hero. Yeah. And that's regardless of political party. But I'll be very clear. There are articles out there right now that need to be corrected, calling his combat service in Iraq into question. He was never in Iraq. So let's make these things very clear. The governor needs to stand up and make his record transparent for all of us. You know, as we go forward in this, I think we want to make sure that we have leaders in the White House who are going to be transparent on their record, but also are going to stand by the men and women currently serving in harm's way in very hot zones and combat environments where I served, to make sure that our young servants who stand up are protected. And I'm not seeing that happen from the Kamala administration right now.
Yeah, that's well said. I agree. We are grateful for your service and everyone's service in the military. But on the economic front, Kamala Harris's campaign website still does not have any information about her economic plans. The page offers Harris and Walz's biographies, campaign merchandise as the section to donate. Nothing about policy plans. Her campaign speeches do not offer much either. Watch this.
We fight for a future where every senior can retire with dignity, a future where we build a broad-based economy, and one where every American has the opportunity to own a home, to start a business, to build wealth.
Campaign spokesperson avoiding Fox News Digital's question about how Harris plans to handle a recession. Instead, they attacked Trump for labeling this week's sell-off in stocks the Kamala crash. The campaign accused Trump of spreading chaotic, ranting lies and claimed that Trump's economic plans would supercharge inflation. Congressman, how are they saying that Trump would supercharge inflation when, under Trump, when he left office, inflation was at 1.4%? But then Biden and Harris spent $7 trillion and inflation soared to 9.1%. We're still feeling the effects of the essentials like food and energy and shelter cost way more than anyone wants or expected.
Yeah, Maria, you nailed it on the head. Look, when President Trump left office in Iowa, gas was at $1.63, and now it's up to nearly $4. Price of eggs here is up 40% in a place we're the #1 egg-producing state in the country, and I still can barely get enough omelets to cover down on my 6 kiddos here. Look, the reality is that spending in Washington has a direct impact on folks back here in the heart of the heartland, and it's unfair because these folks have worked hard. 99% of my state is made up of small businesses. It's not just the federal spending, it's the overwhelming amount of red tape and regulation that has been poured downstream into the actual job and economic creators. We can't pay off our national debt just by good Republicans trying to cut spending. We've also got to be able to grow our economy. And Kamala and the Biden administration have clearly made it to every American that not only are we going to spend more, we're going to regulate more. And that goes from big businesses, but really down to frontline, hometown, Main Street communities that are being decimated by this. Well, $12,000 every year for an American family, particularly in Iowa, to have to live under this administration. Unacceptable.
I mean, all you have to know is that Bernie Sanders is quite supportive of Harris's decision to choose Tim Walz as her running mate. Sanders is touting Harris and Walz's progressive economic ideas while pushing back on Republicans calling Walz a radical. Watch this.
So I think to the degree that the vice president and the governor can stay focused on economic issues that benefit working people, demand that the billionaire class start paying their fair share of taxes, you know what? I think they're going to not only win, I think they have a chance to win pretty big. You want to attack them for being radical? I'll help pay for the ad.
Congressman, I want to get your reaction, but let me bring Lee Carter in. She's got really her finger on the pulse of how people see it. But Lee, you know, you go to the grocery store and you buy a dozen eggs, just like the congressman said, or bread, or these essentials, and you're feeling it. And isn't that what's driving voters right now? Tell me what you think is driving voters.
I think the economy is what's driving voters.
She hasn't said a word about it.
She hasn't. Fewer than 1 in 5 Americans feel optimistic about the economy, about the future. Fewer than 1 in 5 Americans feel like they can make ends meet. They're having to make sacrifices to make ends meet each month. That's unbelievable. And yet her answer is, let's go after price gouging in companies. This administration has told us the economy has never been better.
Yeah.
This administration, of which Kamala is part, has done nothing about it, and yet they're out there saying that she's out there saying that she's going to change everything, and it's just I don't know how the American people are buying it.
Can she get away with that, Congressman? Final word from you, real quick.
Yeah, Lee, those are what the numbers are telling you. I'll tell you what Americans are saying. They're sick of it. They're tired of it. They're paying more. You can't have a Kamala policy that starts out with, I hear you on how bad the economy is, and then the very next sentence is, this is the best economy ever because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Right.
It's absolute non sequiturs, and it's a result of no policy plans and no leadership that she has proven in her last 3 years as vice president.
Yeah.
We need to change the entire setup, and I'm very glad that the Republican Party in the House is leading that charge.
Yeah, I mean, the policies have been the green agenda. So there's going to be spending on the climate change agenda continuing, and that is going to cost money. They want to raise taxes to pay for it. Congressman, thank you. We'll keep watching it all. Zach Nunn joining us this morning. Thank you, sir.